Welcome to Pages and Pods. This podcast continues our discussion on the book According to Luke by Rudolf Steiner. The focus will be on the two Jesus boys and resurrection. Let's do a quick review of how anthroposophy explains human development as a journey through different spiritual epochs. Before the time we live in now, humanity went through the Polarian, Hyperborean, Lemurian, and Atlantean epochs. You can find more details about these epochs on websites dedicated to the teachings of Rudolf Steiner. Links to these resources are included in the show notes. Modern humanity belongs to the Post-Atlantean Epoch, which is divided into several cultural ages. These include the Indian Age, the Persian Age, the Egyptian Chaldean Age, the Greco-Latin Age, and the current German Anglo Age, which began in 1413 and will end in 3573. Fortunately, if we adhere to anthroposophy, the world will not be ending soon. We still have over 1,500 years left in this age. Prior to our modern age, the Greco-Roman age was a time when humanity began to turn inward, developing the faculties of abstract thought, free will, and individuality. According to Rudolf Steiner, the current age is when the consciousness soul matures and is influenced by the Christ impulse. After this, humanity will transition into the sixth cultural age, also called the Russian or Slavic age. Great spiritual incarnations of ascended masters help shape these ages. These are souls who, after many lifetimes and reincarnations, have gained a deep understanding of the universe. They have completed their karmic cycle and no longer need to return to physical form. Yet, out of compassion for humanity, they choose to return as humans to guide and teach us. Zoroaster, also known as Zarathustra, was the leading guide during the Persian Age, while Hermes Trismegistus and Moses were the key leaders of the Egyptian Chaldean Age. The individuality, known as the Buddha, has been active since Atlantean times, embodying compassion. The Buddha is prophesied to return to the sixth cultural age as the Maitreya Buddha. In this presentation, we will explore how the individuality of Zoroaster became embodied in Jesus, who would later transform into Christ. We know about Zoroaster through ancient songs called gathas that have been passed down over thousands of years. Many scholars believe Zoroaster composed them to tell people about the god Ahura Mazda and how to live a godly life. As in many ancient religions, they began their discourse as oral tradition. Zoroaster's date of birth is entirely unknown. Many scholars have placed it to around 600 BCE, while others, such as the Greek scholar Diogenes and Roman historian Pliny the Elder, placed his birth before 6000 BCE. Some contemporary research pushes his birth back to 10,000 BCE. But we can't be certain of the time of his existence because his teachings were passed down through oral tradition. The oldest known written Gatha dates back to 1323 CE, so it doesn't help establish his birth. If we follow Rudolf Steiner and spiritual science, then we can place his existence in the Persian cultural age. Zoroaster is important to us because his spiritual individuality merged into Jesus. Without his essence, Jesus would not have been capable of receiving the solar Christ force into his material body. Zoroaster taught about the struggle between good and evil, the eventual victory of good, a messianic savior called Saoshyant, and a final day of resurrection and judgment. His ideas influenced Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Zoroastrianism blended with Judaism during the Babylonian exile and became part of Jewish beliefs after Cyrus the Great, a Zoroastrian who believed in Ahura Mazda. It was Cyrus the Great, the king of the Achaemenid Empire, who allowed the Jews in Babylonian captivity to return back to Israel and aided in the reconstruction of the temple in Jerusalem. The Achaemenid Empire was vast and grew to its largest size under Darius the Great, who was also a believer in Ahura Mazda. It was under the Achaemenids that Zoroastrianism spread to Egypt, Asia Minor, and throughout the Iranian plateau. Wisdom and truth are at the core of Zoroastrianism. He believed he received his message directly from the creator god Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Light and Wisdom. He introduced the idea of moral dualism to ancient Persia, teaching that people must choose between Asha, meaning truth, and righteousness, and Druj, which is falsehood and chaos. At a time when strict hierarchical polytheism dominated, Zoroaster emphasized that individuals were responsible for choosing a righteous path. He taught that each individual has a fravashi, which is the personal, eternal spirit of an individual. The fravashi sends a soul into the material world to fight for goodness and truth, thereby defeating evil. Like all individualities, Zoroaster's spiritual identity split apart after his death. The etheric body associated with life forces and spirituality was given to Moses to support his mission of bringing the Torah, commonly known as the Old Testament, and the Ten Commandments to the Israelites, as well as to lead them out of slavery to freedom. Zoroaster's astral body, linked to intellect and spiritual insight, was given to Hermes Trismegistus, who is associated with wisdom and alchemy. The individuality, or I, of Zoroaster was given to the Solomonic Jesus. According to Rudolf Steiner, Zoroaster's spiritual essence, symbolizing wisdom and leadership, was incarnated in the Jesus from the Solomonic lineage. Joseph, the father of Jesus, was critical in bringing the Solomonic Jesus to Egypt, where the spiritual forces of Moses and Hermes Trismegistus would be integrated into him. This process allowed these forces to reconnect with the I of Zoroaster, preparing the vessel for the Christ being. But why was it necessary to incarnate the essence of Zoroaster into Jesus? What was humanity meant to gain? And what does Steiner's teaching of the two Jesus boys reveal? While exploring this topic, I found inspiration in the work of a teacher of esoterica and anthroposophy named Gigi Young. I subscribed to her website for her lessons about anthroposophy and spiritual science. During one of her members-only lectures, she discussed the role of the two Jesus boys. They are the Solomonic and Nathanic Jesus described by Rudolf Steiner. She explained that they symbolize how we should all approach death and resurrection. In her view, Christ is a spiritual function for humanity, and each of us is born with the Spirit of Christ within our higher self. Every person has a lower and higher self. The lower self holds fear and trauma and the shadow within the physical body, while the higher self preserves the soul's essence and past life experiences. Like everyone else, Jesus reincarnated through many lives to develop his eternal soul. Understanding reincarnation is a key to comprehending Christ's life and teachings and how the crucifixion, known as the mystery of Golgotha, transformed the evolution of the human's soul. Solomonic Jesus is described as the reincarnation of Zoroaster, representing the culmination of earthly wisdom and spiritual lineage. The Nathanic Jesus embodies the essence of the Buddha, though not through reincarnation. The two Jesus boys symbolize the union of love, the Nathan Jesus, and wisdom, the Solomon Jesus, reflecting the complete realization of the Christ within. Gigi Young describes the higher self as likened to a lotus flower, with outer layers representing life experiences and the inner core containing Christ's essence, or I am. She explained Steiner's description of the two Jesus boys in the following way. The Solomonic Jesus, representing wisdom and earthly experience, and the Nathan Jesus, embodying divine love and purity. Through multiple incarnations, these two would merge their spiritual essences into one individual. This person, Jesus, would take on the spiritual power of Christ. Christ's resurrection represents the union of the higher spiritual self with the earthly self, leading to self-perfection and spiritual immortality. The merging of the Buddha and the etheric bodies of Zarathustra, Hermes, and Moses into the person of Jesus created a physical vessel capable of bringing the solar Christ to earth. In her words, Jesus not only performs resurrection, he resurrects with the Christ within himself. Jesus fully integrates the Christ essence, establishing a perfected immortal body. Through his resurrection, he merges the universal Christ into the spiritual essence of all of humanity. His death and resurrection become a model for human spiritual evolution. In Gigi Young's words, it's not just resurrection or having your immortal body established. It's having your immortal body established already, having your last incarnation and putting every aspect of yourself together. The Christ aspect is the holy fire that alchemizes you, transforming you right down to your bones. Before Jesus, only spiritual masters like Buddha or Zarathustra could escape samsara, breaking free from the cycle of life and death to reach a purely spiritual state. With Jesus' resurrection, the solar Christ became part of the higher self in every person, taking root in the lotus flower within us and giving everyone a chance to achieve true self-realization. To summarize, according to Rudolf Steiner, we are currently living in the Post-Atlantean Epoch, and specifically in the German Anglo Age, which will end in another 1500 years. Zoroaster, also known as Zarathustra, brought the concept of the soul's individuality, known as the Fravaji, and the message of a single eternal God based in life and truth to the world. He gave parts of his eternal being to Hermes Trismegistus, Moses, and the Solomonic Jesus. Another child, the Nathanic Jesus, was born close to the same time as the Solomonic Jesus and carried within him the pure essence of compassion from the transcendent Buddha. When both boys were 12, the eye of the Solomonic Jesus, the reincarnated Zarathustra, entered into the Nathanic Jesus, who was the first earthly incarnation of the original Adam and had never before lived on earth. Soon afterwards, the Solomonic Jesus died, leaving only the Nathanic Jesus on earth. From that moment, the Nathanic Jesus bore the united forces of wisdom and love. At the age of 30, Zarathustra's individuality withdrew, and into this perfected vessel descended the solar Christ at the baptism by John the Baptist in the Jordan River. In many lectures by Gigi Young, she explains that the embodiment of these spiritual essences allowed Jesus' body to receive the solar Christ, which descended into materiality. When Jesus was crucified, the solar Christ was resurrected, a process that was imprinted onto all of humanity. This process, known as the Mystery of Golgotha, created a pathway for all of humanity to evolve to the next spiritual state of Earth's evolution. You can find out more about Gigi Young from her channels on YouTube and Rumble, and her posts on Facebook and other social media channels, listed in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe, and make comments. This lets me know that I'm on the right track and I should continue making podcasts like this one.